The time is now 9:34. The Community Development and Housing Development Committee is now called to order. Clerk, can you call the roll?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Hauser.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Schlepper.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Clerk, is there any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Thank you. Members, you have the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Clerk, will you call the first item into record?
Resolution 2025-0077, amending resolution number 2024-0375, dated November 12, 2024, which authorized affordable housing loans to various organizations in the total amount not to exceed $4,550,000 for the Affordable Housing Gap Financing Program to convert the $200,000 affordable housing loan for Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry to a grant.
Good morning. Sarah Parks Jackson, Department of Housing and Community Development. This is our request to convert what was indicated as a loan to a grant. We have granted funds to Lutheran. This will be the third one for them to do housing for people coming out of a homeless situation, because the need for that transitional housing is so evident in our community, because you just can't bring folks from the shelter situation into like a market rate or affordable housing. So this allows some of the families to transition. They get supportive services to help them also make that transition. And all of that's provided by Lutheran. The other two that we have provided to them have been grants. So we wanted this to be a grant as well.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Councilman?
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning, Councilman.
How much in grants has already been afforded them?
I believe it's trying to do the math, close to 900,000, and this would take it to about $1.1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Sir, where are these new homes going to be located?
In the St. Clair Superior neighborhood, this seems to be LMM's focus.
Near their main headquarters?
Yes.
In that general area?
Yes, that's their focus right now. And they have been buying houses, vacant houses, and then rehabbing them and making, we might fund for a building or two, but in that building, it'll have 2 units or 3 units for families to be able to transition from homelessness into that situation. And what we find is that it's working, and the families are happy to have that level of support. This funding will provide 3 additional, we say units, but it's housing units for families transitioning from homelessness.
Single-family homes?
Some of them are, but then that's one family, so they try to find a property where they can have at least 2. So it's a double, or where they can construct a new somewhere near it. They work with the land bank,
Okay.
so that's how they acquire
By the property?
the properties, yes.
Okay. But it's clearly part of the pipeline. Where are the homeless coming from? Is it our homeless shelters? Where are they?
The Lutheran is a part of the continuum of care, so they have their own like pipeline of how people, where they come from and how they get them, but they are from our shelters, yes.
From our shelters?
Yes.
Okay. Last, what was the again, the rationale for changing? Was there a trigger that they had to meet, or give me the origin of why this started as a loan and now is being transitioned to a grant?
It was my fault. It
So your
should have
fault.
been, it should have been a grant, but in listing all of the loans that we did under that particular resolution, I just didn't catch it as saying loan as opposed to grant. So when it was brought to my attention, I'm here now to make that correction.
Okay. Hi, good morning, Sunny. Hi, good morning,
morning.
Sarah. So did they pay anything back in this time frame that we passed it as a loan and now here we're converting it to a grant? It should have been a grant.
No, they're just getting started.
So nothing
Actually,
has been paid to us and they're, okay.
no. And when we do a loan, they are zero interest and forgivable based on them maintaining affordability. So all of the loans done by Housing and Community Development are zero interest, 20 years affordability, and then forgiven.
So when you say we, and we always do it like this, that depends on the source of the funding though, right? Through your department, or are you saying that everything you do through housing will always be a grant?
Well, I'm not going to say always, not a grant, but our loans that we do are always and have been for a while now, zero interest, 20-year term, and that 20-year term is based on them maintaining the HUD-approved affordability for that 20 years, and then we forgive it.
So it's still a loan and they've been paying us something without interest. Are you saying that they don't pay us anything?
So Lutheran specifically, we have given them 2 grants already, and this would be the 3rd grant, and they're just getting started. So that's when it was brought to my attention. We were getting ready to do all the paperwork, and it's like, oh, it says loan. I'm like, that wasn't my intent, because the other 2 for the transitional housing was grants.
I just want to go back to the loan statement, though. You said there's zero interest coming out of your department.
Yes.
With a small caveat, I caught that. Not always, but mostly. But they're still making payments to us on our loans. They're just not paying the interest.
No, there are no payments.
Why are we calling it a loan then?
Because we can recapture the funds if they don't maintain the affordability, and we put a lien on the property. Excuse me. So the structure that we set up, I don't know, it's been probably 10 years, was that because of the affordability and to make it all work with the HUD regulations and legally, it's a loan, it's forgivable, it's deferred, it's zero interest, because our goal is to increase affordable housing in the county, and by having that 20-year term on there that they have to maintain the units, it allows us to know that we've got units.
It's a conditional grant, I guess, instead of a loan. Because a loan, in my mind, and I've been sitting through these meetings, it's always been perplexing, and we can talk offline, but when I conceive of something as a loan, I expect payment from the recipient. In this case would be whoever our partner is. But if they're not expected, or there's no expectation that they're going to pay it back ever, I guess, unless they don't meet qualifications, and we have security to get reimbursed, that maybe really the proper way I see it is a conditional grant. But that's another day, because in a loan, I expect somebody's paying us back. Okay, that's just my comment.
That sparked questions for me as well. I obviously just using the term conditional grant, but it was a loan. It started as a loan. Was there paperwork? Did they apply for the loan since it was how did they get the loan without going through a process, or did they go through a process?
They applied for funding. Not specifically a loan or grant. They applied for funding for this transitional housing. Because we had provided them with grants before with using different funds, my determination was, okay, this needs to be a grant as well, based on the fact that they are the only ones that I'm aware of that are doing transitional housing in the county. So moving folks from homelessness into that much-needed transitional space before they move to a permanent market rate situation is optimal for Lutheran to be able to continue to create these units.
It's more like they're a known quantity and Let me change and ask another question. They've received grants. What were the criteria for them to get a grant? for them to receive this being the third grant, the first two and this third one, what criteria were required and what did they meet to be worthy of the grant?
What we looked at originally, if I recall correctly, the first grant that we gave them actually was in conjunction with an RFP that was issued by Homeless Services. So we are looking at how do we help coordinate that housing need with Homeless Services, and what is that need? And the need was determined to be transitional housing because the federal funds that come to housing and community development cannot be used for shelters. It has to be housing. So how is the best way for us to assist? Is to assist those folks coming out of a homeless situation into a transitional housing situation. And the determination was made that, well, I made it, that, okay, these need to be grants for Lutheran because they are the only ones providing this transitional housing. They have been doing it on their own. They're doing a really good job, 1 or 2 units at a time. So let's help in 2 ways. Let's help the folks that are in the shelters get into a space where they can start to rebuild. And the other way is because Lutheran is providing those social services, which if they went from a homeless shelter into, say, a market rate, there's no support services. They're just there. So let's make this a grant so that everything that these families need as they transition is there.
Okay. I'm also hearing your department is interested in finding more individuals or institutions who would do transitional housing?
When we release our informal RFP for affordable housing, transitional housing is there. We also do a grant to, gosh, I can't think of the name, but they provide housing for people, adults with disabilities.
Okay.
That's a grant because it's providing for those who are 18 or older, who need a place, also with services. And I saw this as being similar. Also with the support services necessary to live day to day on their own. When that application goes out, North Coast is who I was thinking about. North Coast Community Homes will apply. They don't specifically say they want a loan or a grant, they just apply for funding. The application itself says loan, but we make the determination internally. And for years, we have provided North Coast with funding for the developmentally disabled adults for them to house. This, to me, fit that same model.
Thank you.
I have a question through the chair. Good morning, Director.
Morning.
You mentioned that this is going to add 3 additional units to what I'm guessing is already an inventory of units. Can you tell me how many broadly they have in this particular transitional program? That's my first question.
I will get you that information. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking about 10
Okay.
because of what it costs for them to do the rehabilitation to those units, but I will certainly get that information to the council, to the committee.
Thanks. And then my second question through the chair is there preference given, let's say, a single parent situation or someone that has multiple children or something like that? How do they kind of score, these particular individuals? Is it based on need? Can you kind of just shed some light on that process?
I know it's based on need, and it's generally family. Now, how they are defining family, we've never really gotten that in depth with them. But what I'm thinking is at the chairman's pleasure, we can have Lutheran come in and talk to you about all the things that they do, just to present to the committee for 15 minutes or so, because they do a lot of good work. They work with our Department of Reentry, they work with Homeless Services, and they work with us. So that's my recommendation, because it's also a good news story to hear the things that they're doing.
That'd be great, Director. I do have a couple questions as well. How is the county tracking success and impact on this funding with the homeless community in the county as a whole? Like, how are we tracking the success?
We don't necessarily track the requests from my department. I would have to, and they're in transition as well. Homeless Services also works directly with Lutheran. The tracking would be done at the Homeless Services end as opposed to our end. For example, when we do the actual affordable housing loans where people's rent is lower, we don't track that. We are doing either the construction or the rehabilitation of the units. The social part, I leave to the professionals.
What's the timeline for this project, Director?
They anticipate having it completed by the end of the year.
Just clarification, you said there is supportive services attached to these housing units, such as like mental health and employment accessibility?
Yes,
And then they just work, whoever gets in the housing unit, they just work with Lutheran?
that's correct.
That's excellent. I had a question about community input. Director, that might be more of a Lutheran metropolitan question though. But yeah, we would love, as a committee, for them to come in so we can learn more about the great work they do.
I will work with staff to get that scheduled based on your availability.
Any more questions?
Well, it might be nice to actually tour Lutheran.
We can make
Everything
that
from their
happen
central
too as well.
kitchen to go there and actually see what they're doing. They have a central kitchen where they apprentice the reentry population. And with that, is they prepare food and sell it to the homeless shelter services. You know, the reentry population learns the industry. They learn to prepare food, and they can either start their own business one day or work in the food industry. So it really does help the reentry population. That's actually a county creation, county council creation.
We can do twofold. I can have them come in, make a presentation, and also, depending on scheduling, have them give us a day and time where whatever members of council would like to go and tour. I'm sure they'd be happy to have you. They like showing off. So we'll make that happen.
That sounds excellent. If there's no further,
Actually, I did have one question. Just down in item 4, the original organizations, item 4 says Cuyahoga County Land Bank. It says in the amount to exceed. Was that a typo, or if that's accurate, what does that mean? Where it's amount to exceed $1.5 million.
The knot got left.
That's a typo?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
all right.
And they are almost completed with those funds.
Okay, all right.
Director, are you asking for a second reading suspension?
No, it can go full 3.
Okay. If there's no further discussions, I'd like a motion to move this item to the next council meeting for second reading. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you.
And I'd like the record to reflect that Ms. Simon is in attendance. Resolution 2025-0082, awarding a community development grant award in the amount not to exceed $300,000 to JSAACC LLC for the creation of the Africa Town Plaza Art and Cultural Center located at the former YMCA Cedar Branch, 7515 Cedar Avenue, Cleveland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is James Sosan. I'm a real estate developer in the city of Cleveland, and I specialize in adaptive reuse of historic buildings. I have done at least 5 historic restorations in Cleveland, and most of them are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And I consider myself as a savior because I can tell you I've saved about 5 historic buildings in the city of Cleveland. So I'm here this morning to talk of my latest project, which is named African Town Plaza. This building is located on Cedar Avenue and East 77th. It was originally built in 1942 as a YMCA for the African American people during segregation. So this building is actually very important in Cleveland. It's part of Cleveland history. It's the first building that opened the door for African American kids as a summer camp. So I bought this building in 2023. It was actually condemned by the city. And if I had not purchased this building, in another year, it would have been demolished, and they will have demolished a lot of history in Cleveland. So I'm very excited about this project. We're going to convert the building into adaptive reused. We're going to have 19 apartments in it. We're going to have about 10 offices, commercial kitchen, and event center. And the event center is part of the culture of the building. Building was open to the public, to the community. So we'll continue that tradition by having the event center in the building. In addition to the event center, we're going to have a commercial kitchen. And the commercial kitchen, the purpose of the commercial kitchen is to teach how to cook African dishes, which will also be open to the community. This is about $9 million project. We're asking for the for Cuyahoga community, Cuyahoga County to provide a grant of $300,000, which will really help with the development of this building. We've gotten all the financial structures together, and this is the last part of it in order to be able to close and move forward into construction of the building. It's going to be a 1-year construction period, which we're hoping to start hopefully this month as soon as we get this last piece of the financial deal together. So that's why I'm here today, to pitch for this $300,000 grant, and hopefully the council will approve it.
Thank you. Committee, have any questions?
Not so much a question, it's more of just a statement. I am truly happy for you, Mr. Sosan. Happy for the community as you bring this project forward. I grew up going to that YMCA as a child. It's literally 2 blocks from my home. I learned to swim in that building. It was the last time it was open was in 2008 when Barack Obama ran for office, and they had campaign offices out of there. But after that, it was owned by a church who partially fixed it up. It was owned by an individual by an individual person. But once I realized that you were purchasing it, I was extremely happy because I knew it was now in the hands of a qualified real estate developer that would be able to bring this building back to life. And I'm excited for it, for the community, the positive impact this is going to have, the individuals that you will bring to the community who can continue to help to develop the neighborhood. I see so much potential, as you've already shared in our offline conversations, with what this will bring to the neighborhood. We have experienced redlining for generations, and so much demolition is happening, and I'm personally responsible for, in this council, for much demolition, needed demolition, but at the same time, we've lost a lot of infrastructure and buildings, and this is one that could have been on the list, but now you bringing it back is a blessing to this neighborhood, and so I am happy for you. You have my full support, and I just thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Always happy to see that historic and blighted buildings that can be brought back to life for use by the community. I think it's an excellent project. You have my full support for this grant. That's the only statement I care to make. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I was going to mention through the chair. I echo those sentiments, driving through Fairfax neighborhood in that part of the city. It's incredibly exciting to see the momentum and some of the surrounding projects in that neighborhood and in that area. With some of the historical issues and being a food desert and seeing some of the new food halls and just some of the energy and momentum. This is an incredibly exciting project, and I echo Councilman Jones' sentiments as well, that this is amazing and we're happy to support this as well.
Thank you, sir.
I have a thank you for being here in the presentation. This is more a question for my colleague or somebody to talk about the funding and the balance in this fund and this new process that seems to, benefit people who came in fast and first with this process. We've never had this before. So I'd like to know what's in this fund. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Trevor McClure, County Council staff. Yes, Councilwoman Simon, Council President Miller asked me to prepare a summary of applications that were recently received. It should be at your, in front of you. At the direction of the Council President, I sent out community development applications to seven different entities. 3 of those have been received so far, including the one that's in front of you. And then we received another one from the Fantasy Community Foundation, which is regarding the Studio West project at 117th and Lakewood. And then the other one,
$1 million for
That was the-
for the president's district.
that was the requesting of the, and then the third one was Birthing Beautiful Communities, who requested $500,000 for capital upgrades of their space. It's about 15,000 square feet. And then we received a fourth one from the city of Strongsville, which was not directly sent to, but I think Councilman Gallagher reached out and sent Strongsville the application. On the second half of the sheet are the first 4 are the remaining 4 that we sent those out to about a week and a half ago. And then I got a couple questions from the Economic Development Director from North Royalton. So I'm anticipating receiving an application from him as well.
What's the balance?
The current fund has about $8.5 million in the casino revenue fund, the Community Development Fund. There will ultimately be a transfer to the Economic Development Fund, I'm guessing probably in the next month, similar to years past. Then at the next committee of the whole, there will be discussion of the transfer to fund the Gateway project that was already approved by this body, but they actually need to do the cash transfer. So that'll be, I think, $2 million, if I remember correctly. I have it upstairs.
Okay, wait. So we're going to transfer 2+ for Gateway
Correct?
soon.
Yes.
And then we're also going to do the transfer for the Economic Development Fund for the administration.
Correct, the annual transfer. And then
And what's that annual transfer?
it'll be, I think it's going to probably be close to 4 million, probably 3.8, 3.9.
So we're losing 6 out of 8?
But then, as a reminder, we will receive another
Yeah.
$8 million throughout the year. We have not received the first
Yeah,
quarter.
but that turns to 6.
Yes, and then included in that, though, will be $1.5 million for the CDSG program for this year.
Yeah.
And then the $1 million for the housing program. So projected year-end balance is about $6.5–7 million after all of our obligations are met.
Including these that are on the table?
No,
No.
no.
No. So we're looking at maybe a net balance of 6, and we already have somehow committed to 2.5,
No,
correct?
no, not committed. That's just requested.
Well,
so-
before this, it has to go through this council and this committee.
Correct. Someone
So
would have to
assuming
sponsor
every-
legislation.
That's right.
Get it in
Well, I'm
front of-
sure it's in the works. It appears to me that that's all done, including the other projects that are on the list. So that's going to eat up 2.5 out of 6, leaving some, okay. All right, listen, committee, we've got to stay vigilant over this. This is a totally new thing that we're lining this up, and people have projects that they've been able to get in before anybody else. And, you know, I'm a little weary of this whole process. And it's not to cast any aspersions on the applicant or the colleague who's sponsoring this. It's just I'm a bit dismayed that things are moving fast. Even these anticipated projects seem to have already been cut. And so I'm not sure what numbers we're looking at, but we've got to, as a committee, take a look at what we're expecting, committee chair and anybody else to put their numbers in here before we start awarding these projects.
And
Except for, you know, this is not a major ask, but when we start looking at $1 million and these other, I just want to make sure everything's within a budget that we all can take advantage of for our communities, instead of having this used up and we're stuck year's end, you know, down the road waiting. It just seemed the early bird caught the worms.
Mr. Chair, if I can add just to Councilwoman Simon's point, this project in particular was actually in the works before that application was created. Councilman Jones, prior to even the application being created, did ask staff to draft the legislation for him because he planned on introducing, and then I believe he had a conversation with the council president and delayed introducing his legislation because the council president requested that we get an application in, which was, we received that early last week.
I'm aware of that. Thank you. I'm not picking on this project in particular, or any project. It's just this process, I think, how it happened quickly, and projects are already in line, and they're coming in front of this committee. So I'm a little bit hesitant about this process at this point. And especially since we just awarded a bunch of money to Westside Market in District 7. And now there's, you know, more coming out of there, and looks like more is more for Westside Market. Is that true? Down in this anticipated description, where does that come from?
We did send them another application. We have not received it. So I don't know when they did present to the committee, they indicated, I think they have a need of about $65 million for the entire renovation over different phases.
How much have we given them already? That was the last year award.
I believe it was 1.3.
Coming out of District 7, 1.3. Now we're looking at 1 million, and then we're going to be looking at more for Westside Market.
Yeah, I don't know how much they plan on requesting.
Okay, well, I think we have to take a look at that Westside Market. I'm sure East Cleveland needs some help.
Anything else? Anything else? No. Well, we thank you for presenting. I do have a couple questions as well. I do understand your sentiments, Councilwoman Simon, and I think just as a committee, we have to be vigilant. The reason we did allow this presentation to come today was it was presented before the change took place. I might have missed it to the speaker. Can you speak on any other sources of funding for this project, any public-private sources?
Mr. Chair, if I might, before we
Councilman.
change our thought process,
Yep.
just to weigh in on that.
Sure, go ahead.
Because you are correct, this project was in place for 12 months. It's a 12-month project. How long ago did you buy the property?
I bought it in 2023.
23, so you've had the property for 2 years. So,
yes.
So somewhere just within those 2-year project, as we've been talking, been at least since last summer.
Yes.
Before last summer, at least 12 months. So it's been in place for a while. And you're right, as you go through the numbers, there was a moment where there was in the neighborhood of $3 million available to this council, and $300,000 out of we could have all done 11 projects, you know, of the similar magnitude, each one of us, before, you know. So this is, in terms of the impact this dollar amount has on the overall fund, it wasn't a large impact, you know, and it was always by a vote of all of us. Someone came in with a $7 million project, it'd probably be a no, right? So with $300,000, you know, that was really the process that we had, and we all worked and we brought our projects forward. So this wasn't necessarily fast; it's just here, as the council president has instituted a policy. So I still need, I guess, a little clarity on what the policy looks like. the new protocol, not policy, new protocol for how we operate. I certainly want to hear more on that. And I totally agree with Councilwoman Simon in terms of how we continue to do oversight and a fair distribution of these dollars. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
So back to your question. So we have historic tax credit on this project. I was lucky enough to get new market tax credit, which brought about $4 million into the project. $2 million of that is leverage loan, and 1.8% of million of that is from U.S. Bank, which they are the investor in the new market tax credit. And the leverage loan of $2.2 million is coming from Village Capital Corporation in Cleveland. So that's the new market aspect of the financial package. And then we get the federal historic tax credit and the Ohio State historic tax credit. And all of the two credits were purchased by Enhanced Capital. They're from New Orleans. I have applied for TIF from the city of Cleveland, which equivalent to about $2.7 million for the period of the TIF, and got a grant from the city of Cleveland of $50,000. Received a $250,000 grant from CDA and a $100,000 grant from Village Capital Corporation. So that's the financial stack for the project.
Nice. I know when we met, you had each thing itemized. I think if you could send that to us so that the committee can see it as well, the different funding sources, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
What's the long-term financial sustainability plans for the center once it is completed?
Like I said, the loan from VCC is for 7 years. The new market tax credit itself is for 7 years. And the tax credit, the historic tax credit, is 5 years. So after 7 years, I have to go back and refinance the project at the end of the new market tax credit period.
Can you just talk briefly about job creation and workforce development that this project will bring to the community?
Okay, so far, been talking to Cuyahoga County. We're going to have some kids for summer internship during the construction. And I'm also talking to Ohio Works. Ohio Works, yes. We're going to get some trade from them as well. And also from the City High School. We have about 2 or 3 kids coming for internship as well to learn how to install drywalls and do some framing. So yeah, all that we have in works right now.
Oh, nice.
It's going to create a lot of construction jobs. We're looking at about 40 construction jobs. And after that, permanent jobs depends on how many jobs the tenants will bring into the building. But we're estimating at least 25 jobs that will pay maybe an average of $35 an hour.
That sounds excellent. I share my colleagues' enthusiasm about this project as well. You have my full support. And just for the record, me and you discussed, the county has a welcome center that's located on the west side of the city. I think a cultural center here, if we can figure out a way to work together to have maybe a portion of the building dedicated to a county welcome center for the east side of the community as well. I think that'd be an excellent attribute to the building as well.
I'll be more than happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.
I think that would be a good thing for the building.
So on this item, I would like to add my name. I fully support this. It's long overdue. This is wonderful for the community and the county. And, we've had Asia Town, and for a long time, that's, a cultural attraction, have events, and I anticipate that you're going to be doing the same too.
It's the same idea, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, you can add my name as well.
And mine also, thank you.
Thank you. If there is no further discussion, I'd like to move for a motion to move this forward to our next council meeting for second reading.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Can I just take a second to talk about, for everybody the people who have not been on the committee, when we established the fund from the casino revenue dollars, just for a little history, after the casino bill was passed at the state level, the funds were going to come into Cuyahoga County under the executive Ed Fitzgerald for only a section of downtown Cleveland. And this was over a decade ago. He thought we need to put all the dollars in that, and not even all of downtown, but a section of it. And because of our cities and the voters, the majority of that bill passed through the suburbs and not the city of Cleveland. So I fought very strongly, I think former President Jones remembered, to have this money flow into the communities that voted for it, that we need to make sure that all of Cuyahoga County received this money. So there was a compromise that for the first few years, all the money would go into this designated area of downtown, which made sense. But then after that, it opened up to the community for an opportunity for bigger projects to be funded. And that's where we are. We've never had a formal process in place. When a big project came through a community, a district rep, we were able to get that through collaboration with our committee and colleagues. And so this money really needs to be spread over the full county. And I think it's important that we continue that tradition. Some of this money also went over to the executive side, the casino revenue dollars, and it's a deal, it's not in stone, that we, allowed some of this money to go over to that. So I think we should always be vigilant about that and how that money's being spent. And that's for large-scale projects and economic development loans, or probably. Okay, that's it.
Ordinance 2025-0001, amending Section 714.02E of the Cuyahoga County Code to prioritize municipal corporations and townships in Cuyahoga County when evaluating applications to the Cuyahoga County Community Development Supplemental Grant Program.
Okay. So this is my ordinance.
Do we have any questions?
I'm in full agreement with Councilwoman Simon
On this?
on your
Ordinance, thank you. Okay, so I want to just talk a minute about that too, because that's part of the history here. So when we got the casino revenue dollars, it was, I think, Greenspan, our former colleague, who said, look, some of these dollars need to go back into not only city projects, but community projects that would enhance the CDBG grants, because CDBG grants are driven by federal law. We have Sarah Parks Jackson here, and census tracts. So we would have instances, and I think Lyndhurst is an example, where we had a sliver of CDBG money going on one side of the street, but then on the other side of the street, we couldn't fund that project because it didn't meet the census standards. So part of the rationale of the CDSG was to make sure that if there's projects, worthy but don't fit federal guidelines, that we were able to fund those up to $50,000. So this came before us, and it was well received by council at the time, and former colleague Hairston said, look, we should be looking at Community Development Corp., CDCs. And we're like, okay, that makes sense, I guess. So we went ahead and passed this legislation years ago that would allow the money to flow not only to cities and villages, but to CDCs. What's happened since then somehow is that money has been going, this last round before Councilman Hauser was here, the village of Bracknell got nixed, Cleveland Heights got nixed and Shaker Heights got nixed in favor of not a CDC, but a nonprofit organizations, and which led us to receive blowback from those communities, like, this doesn't make any kind of sense. So that's what was the origin of this legislation, to say, hey, when we're scoring, we want to make sure that cities and villages and communities that we represent get that money, get the priority. And CDCs, of course, are an arm of that. So I've got to make sure that CDCs still are in the loop, but differentiate those from just regular nonprofits. This money, I don't believe, should be going there unless there's, money left over that would fund those projects. But really the priority, I think, has to be our communities and here's why, by the way. Cities don't have the ability to have fundraising like a nonprofit or CD. They don't have that flexibility of money or funding. They're strictly taxpayer real estate, they get their taxes and they're confined to that to fund projects, unlike a nonprofit that can go out on the street and fundraise. Cities can't do that. So I think it's really important that we remember that, and that we were stripped of local government funds years ago with Kasich, who came in. That's when it started, draining our local funds that stripped our cities of being able to provide most basic services that they're mandated to fund, their safety, their streets. But what this does, it enables them to have some amenities for the community, and I think that's really important. So that's the genesis of this. And thank you, Councilman, for your support. I think I want to weed out a little bit about the CDC language, because I think, I know Councilman Jones wants to make sure that that's in there. So differentiating that from a regular nonprofit. So that's really the backdrop. I don't think yet, this is ready for a vote, because I just want to tease that out.
We appreciate the background, Councilwoman. We can talk offline. Definitely want to understand the ordinance a little better as well, because I think an argument could be from a nonprofit standpoint. And so I just would need more clarity if, dollars that a nonprofit can get compared to a city. I think the argument is like a city, and don't get me wrong, Cleveland Heights and Bradnall are both in my district. Could a city get funding from a different pot of money where like a nonprofit might only have these $50,000 grant funding, which I think was the reason why Councilman Greenspan and Hairston kind of set it up the way they did initially. So just would need more clarification from my understanding as well on the ordinance.
Okay, I appreciate that, but no, it was originally set up just for the communities, not CDCs. It was originally set up just with cities, and CDCs were added, but not nonprofits. There's a difference between a CDC and a nonprofit. And it's the opposite. Cities don't have flexibility to fundraise. That's the reason people get a 501c3 designation, is because they can go out and solicit funds from all sources. Cities don't have that flexibility at all. And I think we need to totally, and we can talk offline, online, but cities are in a bad way. And I think that's our first obligation as a county rep and a city rep, is to make sure that our cities have the basic needs met. And right now they are in desperate need, and nonprofits are totally not what we're anticipated, at least from this seat where I'm sitting, and nor from Greenspan, and even Anthony, who said CDC. He didn't say any nonprofit off the street. Like, we can be giving to, any organization, then this gets to, the train leaves the track at that point. And I think our obligation, from my standpoint, is the cities that I represent.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not sure what you guys did last year, Councilwoman, but I appreciate that background, and look forward to learning more about the ordinance as a whole. What would you hold it? Oh, so we're going to hold this ordinance in committee.
And Mr. Chair, I'll say this, there are 59 cities that make up Cuyahoga County. And of those 59, and Sarah can tell us, are all 59 eligible for these CDSG dollars, or is there an urban core of cities that apply?
Sarah Parks Jackson, Department of Housing and Community Development. We administer the CDSG program on your behalf. All 59
All 59
cities within the county are eligible to apply.
So that has been our priority. And I still maintain that as our priority, that what the cities, municipalities, townships, the bigger cities, small cities, what they consider as important projects to them, whether it's street resurfacing, playgrounds, whatever is relevant to them, that is where these dollars have also gone. It's a helpful asset to them when, again, they have not been able to get other dollars as other organizations have. It's important. My perspective on it is, and Councilwoman has said it, was that the city of Cleveland, who I represent, because I have smaller cities, Newburgh as well, and that mayor will develop and do it directly himself, but Mayor Justin Bibb is not going to be in the weeds of this. So the city is represented by our community development corporations, our CDCs, Burton Bell Cars, and you name them, all of those are the ones who do the work. So what I was making sure is that we fully protect their ability to apply, and they are not caught up in the cleansing of any nonprofits who really didn't have the blessing of a city and doing that, you know. So there is room, though, if a city is actually saying that is a priority to us and they have a letter or something like that, but ultimately this has to be given the city and what they see as priority. That's how we use it, and they apply and they go through a process. So yes, I think it's good that we continue to have some conversation about it and make sure we achieve the objectives that we looking to achieve here and protecting the integrity of this program for our cities and our townships.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, Councilman is correct. In all of these applications, regardless of who it comes from, we require a letter from the highest elected official in support of the project. So the urban county communities do not have there's like 5 or 6 CDCs, so folks are relying on their community development corporations in some areas, especially in the city of Cleveland. Others are supporting the nonprofits, but from a process standpoint, since we administer on your behalf, part of that process is making sure that the community in which the activity is to occur, that we have the support. That way we know that they are aware of and supporting of the project. That's just part of the process.
And just a quick question. So the nonprofits who received funding last year got that letter, those letters of support as well?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
they do.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would talk to your mayors about that, about what happened.
Yeah.
You weren't here, and they weren't happy. I can name a couple that, you know, I don't represent the district, but the person who did, we received backlash. And by the way, 2 points. One, this is not part of, I'm going to ask that this ordinance actually encompass the requirement that we receive a letter. This is a practice of the administration. That could change tomorrow. So I'd like to say in this ordinance that any project that's not city or even CDC must receive a letter and have that mandated through this legislation. And secondly, I'll save my comment for another day, but here's the point. Everybody can apply. This does not stop people from applying. I think that's really important to understand as well, that anybody can apply that fits the criteria, that meets the requirement. But I think if there's all things being equal, I think a city should decide their own project, not a third party. So.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Director. If there is any, Clerk, do we have any further items?
There are no other items for consideration.
Seeing that there's no further items, is there any miscellaneous business? Nope. I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.